It was Christmas Eve, and the sterile white walls of Seattle Memorial Hospital pulsed with fluorescent light that never dimmed. Machines beeped rhythmically beside my bed, a cruel reminder that my body was failing me just as fast as my world had already fallen apart. I was 34, a widow, a mother of two, and in that exact moment, lying on the emergency bed with my abdomen cramping in relentless waves of pain, I was also utterly alone. Except for Caleb and Chloe, my 2-year-old twins, quietly pushing toy trucks and a plush giraffe across the tiled floor in the corner of the room. Nurse Monica Sullivan hovered over me, professional and warm, her gloved hands gently adjusting my IV line. She gave me that look, compassionate but urgent, the kind nurses give when something is worse than they're allowed to say out loud. "Try to stay still, sweetheart," she said. "We need to prep you for emergency surgery. There's internal bleeding, and we can't wait much longer." I nodded, but even that slight movement sent pain rocketing through my torso. My mouth opened to speak, to ask what felt like the most ridiculous thing in the world. But before I could, my phone buzzed on the tray table. Incoming video call. "Mom." With trembling hands, I reached for it. Maybe they'd changed their minds. Maybe my parents would come through, just this once. All I needed was someone to watch my children. Just a few hours, just so I could have this surgery and, hopefully, survive. I answered. My mother's face filled the screen, hair done, makeup immaculate, holding a sparkling glass of wine in one hand. Behind her, my father was adjusting his cufflinks, wearing a blazer and that smug look he always wore when he thought he was being inconvenienced. "Don't you dare ask us to cancel our plans again," my mother snapped before I could speak. Her voice cut through the hospital's hum like a razor. "We've had these Elton John tickets for months, Madeline. Months!" I blinked, stunned. "I'm going into emergency surgery," I whispered. "They found internal bleeding. There's no one else to watch the twins." My father leaned into the frame. "You're becoming a real burden, Maddie. We're retired now. We deserve to enjoy our lives without constantly dealing with your messes." I didn't cry. Not right away. Not until they hung up. And when they did, after reminding me that they had a hard-earned vacation cruise planned for January and couldn't risk missing it, I felt something inside me collapse, not physically, emotionally. A final thread I didn't know I'd still been holding on to snapped. Monica glanced up from her clipboard, noting the tears sliding silently down my face. She didn't ask. She just squeezed my shoulder. "You've got 2 beautiful kids over there," she said softly. "And you don't have to do this alone. I have a friend, Samantha Brooks. She's a trauma-trained nanny. Worked at Seattle Children's before going private. Want me to call her?" For a second, I almost said no. Out of habit. Out of pride. Out of that twisted sense of guilt that told me I should be able to do everything myself, even with a torn-up body and 2 toddlers. But instead, I exhaled and whispered, "Yes, please call her." It wasn't just about childcare. It was the first act of freedom I'd taken in years. As Monica stepped out to make the call, I lay back against the stiff hospital pillow and stared at the ceiling. The dull hum of the vents, the quiet laughter of my children in the corner, the pain in my abdomen, all of it blurred into a single, overwhelming wave of numbness. And from somewhere deep within that wave came memories. I remembered my college graduation. Haley, my younger sister, had a dance recital that day. My parents went to that instead. I got a generic card in the mail, signed late. I remembered my wedding to Dylan, how my parents had complained that the venue was too far, too cold, and that the catered food wasn't to their standards. They spent the whole evening huddled at a table, frowning. And when Caleb and Chloe were born, they visited once, said the twins were too fussy. "We're just not baby people," my mother had said. Dylan had held me afterward and whispered, "We'll build our own family, one that knows how to love." We almost did, until a drunk driver ran a red light 6 months ago and stole him from us. I hadn't even stopped to grieve properly. I went back to work a week after the funeral, because I had to, because someone had to feed the kids, because someone had to send $20,500 a month to my parents to help cover their mortgage and retirement expenses. Even after Dylan died, even when I was barely surviving, I still paid them. Monica returned 20 minutes later, her expression softer now. "She's on her way," she said. "Samantha, give her 10 minutes." And just like that, something inside me shifted. I asked Monica to hand me my phone. My hands still shook, but my voice didn't as I tapped out 2 messages. The first, to my bank, "Cancel all automatic transfers to Janet and Ronald Harper, effective immediately." The second, to my parents, "I will no longer be supporting you financially. Caleb, Chloe, and I deserve better than being your afterthoughts. Please don't contact me again." As I hit send, my heart pounded, not from fear, but from clarity. The room still smelled like antiseptic, the machine still beeped, but something had changed. Me. And then Samantha arrived. She walked in wearing jeans, a dark green sweater, and a gentle, confident expression. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she carried a large canvas tote filled with toys and storybooks. "Hi, Caleb." "Hi, Chloe," she said, kneeling to their level. "I'm Sam. I'm here just to play with you while Mommy gets better. That sound good?" Caleb blinked at her, curious. Chloe nodded slowly, clutching her giraffe. It was like watching the light come on in a room I'd forgotten existed. As the nurses prepped me for surgery, I reached for Samantha's hand. "Thank you," I whispered. She just smiled. "You're not alone. Not anymore." And as they wheeled me down the corridor toward the operating room, with the weight of loneliness, betrayal, and disappointment clawing at me from behind, I felt something unexpected settle over me. Peace. The world returned in pieces, flickers of fluorescent light, the slow rhythm of a heart monitor, the hushed voices of nurses trading shifts, and then tiny giggles. Caleb's squeal of joy echoed faintly from the far corner of the hospital room. I forced my eyes open, disoriented and dry-mouthed, and turned my head just enough to see him stacking colorful foam blocks with Chloe, while Samantha knelt beside them, pretending to be a dragon. "Roar! You better run!" she teased, and both twins erupted into belly laughs. It took me a moment to remember where I was, and then it hit me all over again. The hospital, the surgery, my parents, and Samantha, the only person who'd shown up when it mattered most. A nurse noticed I was awake and walked over quietly. "Hey, Mama," she said gently. "Welcome back. Surgery went well, but we kept you sedated longer than expected. You've been out for almost 24 hours. 24 hours. It was a strange thought. The world had kept turning. My children had kept laughing, and I had kept surviving, even in unconsciousness. I tried to sit up and groaned as the pain came rushing back. Samantha turned toward me with a smile. "Hey there, warrior. You gave us quite a scare." "Thank you," I rasped. My voice was hoarse, but I meant every syllable. "For being here. For everything." She brushed it off with a shrug, but I saw her eyes soften. "You're welcome. Your kids are amazing, by the way, and ridiculously polite for toddlers." That made me laugh. Soft, painful, but real. Later that day, while the twins napped curled up in chairs beside my bed, I asked Samantha for my phone. My fingers trembled slightly as I unlocked the screen. 27 missed calls, 16 unread messages, all from Janet, Ronald, and Haley. I hesitated for just a second. Then I opened the most recent one. "You can't just cut us off like this, Maddie. We've got a cruise planned next month. The tickets are non-refundable. Dad." Cruise tickets. While I was unconscious in a hospital bed, recovering from a life-threatening surgery. I opened another. "Mom and Dad said it's just a minor thing. Why are they freaking out about money? What's going on?" Haley. A familiar ache settled in my chest, not from the incision site, but from somewhere deeper. They'd lied to Haley. Minimized what was happening, framed me, again, as the problem. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed, "Haley, I nearly died. It was an emergency surgery due to internal bleeding." I asked Mom and Dad to watch the twins. They said they had concert tickets and called me a burden. 3 dots popped up almost instantly. Then her reply, "Oh my God, Maddie, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I would have helped. I really would have." My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Not this time. For the first time in years, I felt clarity instead of confusion. Not shame, not guilt. Just quiet understanding of what I'd allowed and what I wouldn't allow anymore. I spent 4 more days in the hospital, healing slowly. Samantha stayed every day, bringing books and snacks for the twins, helping me sit up and gently reminding me to eat. When she wasn't there, Monica would stop by, bringing little stories from the nurse's station or silly cat videos on her phone. I never asked her to. She just cared. On the 3rd day, something inside me shifted again. I was stronger, clearer, focused. So I made decisions, 3 to be exact. First, I offered Samantha a permanent part-time role. She laughed and said she'd already cleared space in her schedule. Second, I called a lawyer, someone Lexi had recommended, and began drafting a new will. I named Lexi as the legal guardian for Caleb and Chloe should anything ever happen to me. Third, I blocked my parents' numbers. No goodbye, no explanation, just a line drawn in permanent ink. The night before my discharge, I lay awake staring at the ceiling tiles. The twins were asleep beside me on the hospital bed, Chloe curled up against my arm, Caleb draped across my legs. The pain was still there, both physical and emotional, but it was quieter now, manageable. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to be the good daughter, all the money I'd sent, the holidays I'd hosted, the family barbecues I'd planned. None of it had ever been enough. So maybe it was time to stop trying to earn love from people who only understood leverage. My phone buzzed again. A message from Haley. I just had a huge fight with Mom and Dad about how they treated you. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Can I see you tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Sure, tomorrow afternoon. Bring snacks." I didn't know what I was opening the door to, but I did know this. If there was going to be healing in my family, it would start with the only person who'd bothered to ask if I was okay. The next morning, I was discharged. Samantha packed up the twins while Monica hugged me tight and whispered, "You are one hell of a woman, Madeline Harper." I didn't feel like a warrior. Not yet. But as I stepped outside, the winter sun hit my face, and I breathed in the crisp December air like it was a promise of more, of better, of me coming back to life. 2 weeks after surgery, I could finally stand long enough to make scrambled eggs. They were a little overdone. Caleb frowned and called them weird eggs, but I made them, standing on my own 2 feet, in my own kitchen, with Chloe dancing beside me, wearing a pink tutu and socks that didn't match. And Samantha? She was in the living room, helping Caleb set up a train set we got secondhand from Lexi's neighbor. The twins had taken to her like she was family, and if I was honest, she felt like it. Every morning, she showed up with a smile, energy, and a new sticker book. Every night, she'd leave with hugs from my children and a "you've got this" wink just for me. And me? I was working again, remotely, limited hours, but my design clients had been understanding. I was building structure, stability, a life. And then, on a Thursday afternoon, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. I froze in the kitchen. Caleb looked up from his trains. Chloe dropped her stuffed giraffe. I peeked through the peephole. My heart sank. Janet and Ronald Harper. My parents. Janet clutched her purse like it contained precious artifacts. Ronald's arms were folded, his signature posture of disappointment stamped on his face. I cracked the door just an inch. "What do you want?" Janet's voice came sugar-sweet, rehearsed. "Natasha, darling, we've been so worried. You haven't answered our calls. We just wanted to make sure you and the twins are all right." "We're fine," I replied flatly. "Is that all?" Ronald stepped forward, his foot nudging the door slightly. "No, it's not. We need to discuss this ridiculous financial situation. The bank called about our mortgage payment, and we had to dip into our cruise savings to cover it." I blinked, slowly, absorbing every syllable. Not one word about my health or my children, or the emergency surgery they refused to help me through. Just the money. "I told you, I'm cutting financial ties. I meant it." Janet's eyes widened, her tone sharpening. "Sweetie, we've come to depend on that money. Your father and I adjusted our lifestyle based on your commitment to help us." "My commitment?" I echoed. I've been sending money out of guilt and obligation, and you couldn't even watch your grandchildren while I was in surgery." Ronald's jaw clenched. "That's not fair, Maddie. We had plans." "More important than your daughter's life?" I said, voice rising. "More important than the safety of your only grandchildren?" They both froze. I could feel the anger vibrating through me, but under it, there was calm, clarity. "There was a chance I wouldn't survive that surgery," I continued. "Did either of you even bother to ask?" Their silence was answer enough. Then, Janet went for her signature move, emotional theatrics. "We made one mistake. Are you really going to punish us like this?" "This isn't punishment," I said, steady as stone. "This is consequence." Ronald's voice shifted to authoritarian mode. "We're your parents." "And I'm a parent too," I snapped. "I would never treat Caleb and Chloe the way you've treated me. Never." Just then, Chloe toddled into view, her giraffe dragging behind her. Janet brightened like a spotlight. "There's my precious grandbaby," she squealed, crouching down. "Grandma brought presents." Chloe took one look at her, at this woman who was technically her grandmother but emotionally a stranger, and backed behind my legs. I met my mother's eyes. "I think you should leave," Ronald tried again. "But the money is no longer your concern," I said, and gently shut the door. The next morning, they came back. This time, they brought reinforcements. My mother's sister, Aunt Sylvia, stood outside my apartment with them, hands clasped, an expression full of sympathy. "Madeline, honey," she called through the door I refused to open, "let's be reasonable. Your parents are struggling without your help." I answered through the wood. They managed their finances for decades without me. They chose early retirement knowing their savings weren't enough. Janet's voice cracked. "We made those decisions because you promised to help us. We've had to cancel our cruise. We might lose the house." Their desperation was loud, but transparent. For years, they'd cloaked manipulation in family obligation. I used to fall for it, but not anymore. "Mom, Dad, I'm recovering from major surgery while raising 2 toddlers. This conversation is over." I turned away from the door as they kept knocking. That evening, my phone dinged. A group email from Ronald. Subject, "Our daughter has abandoned us." He'd sent it to the entire extended family. A dramatic manifesto filled with cherry-picked half-truths and blatant omissions. He wrote about their sacrifices, their emotional wounds, and how I had cut them off without warning or cause. What he didn't include? That they refused to help with my children during a life-threatening surgery because of concert tickets. But then, replies started rolling in. Cousin Tyler chimed in. "Uncle Ron, didn't you just buy a boat a few months ago? And Aunt Janet had a new diamond bracelet at Thanksgiving." Tyler's wife, Erin. "I remember Janet saying she was done with babysitting and that kids are too exhausting." Private messages followed. A few cousins asked for the real story. So I told them, briefly, without drama, just the truth. And to my surprise, they believed me. That weekend, Lexi showed up with groceries. "Your cousin Erin started a GoFundMe," she said. "Don't kill me. I didn't ask her to, but it's already over $4,000. Then Haley came by. No makeup, puffy eyes. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Then don't say anything," I said. "Just hold Chloe for a while." She did. She also washed dishes, read stories, baked banana muffins. When I finally asked why she was really there, she replied, "They made it sound like you were cruel, but they were the ones who were cold. I didn't see it until now." I didn't respond, but in my heart, something began to shift. Maybe healing wasn't out of reach after all. Maybe, just maybe, I could rewrite this story. I was washing blueberries at the kitchen sink when the knock came again. 3 firm taps. No doorbell, no text in advance. Just them. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and looked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. There they were, Janet and Ronald Harper. Again. But something was different this time. My father's button-down shirt was wrinkled. My mother's makeup wasn't perfectly blended, and between them, in Janet's manicured hands, was a folder, thick, stuffed with papers. I cracked the door just an inch. "What now?" Ronald didn't waste time. "We need help," he said. "We're behind on the mortgage. We might lose the house." My eyes flicked down to the folder. Inside, I could see spreadsheets, overdue notices, foreclosure warnings in bold red font. $144,000, he added, like he was announcing the dinner special. "Come in," I said, not out of compassion, not even curiosity. Just clarity. I needed to hear them say it out loud. They stepped inside awkwardly. The twins were at Lexi's for the afternoon, which was probably a mercy. We sat at the tiny dining table. Janet perched on the edge of the chair like it might stain her clothes. Ronald looked everywhere but my face. I let the silence stretch. "What about the boat?" I asked finally. Ronald flinched. "We'd take a loss," he muttered. "And the timeshare?" Janet's voice rose sharply. "We've tried. The market's terrible." I leaned back. "So you want me to cover your 6-figure debt, so you don't have to take a loss on luxury items you bought while calling me a burden?" Janet shifted uncomfortably. "Those are our retirement luxuries." I laughed. I couldn't help it. A short, stunned, bitter laugh. "Luxuries you can't afford." "We could, with your help," Ronald snapped, the old fire returning to his voice. "It's the least you could do after everything we've done for you." That landed like a slap, but I didn't flinch. "What exactly have you done for me?" I asked quietly. They didn't answer. They couldn't. At that moment, Caleb barreled into the room with Chloe toddling behind him. He froze when he saw the strangers in the dining room. Janet's face lit up. "There's my little grandbabies." Chloe reached for my hand and tucked herself behind my leg. Caleb stood frozen, unsure. "They don't know you," I said, eyes still locked on my mother's face. "You've seen them 3 times in their lives. You made no effort. You missed every birthday, every holiday, every emergency." Janet blinked rapidly. "That's not fair. You're too busy for your own grandchildren, too busy to be there when I almost died, but not too busy to beg for money." Ronald leaned forward. "Without your help, we'll lose everything." I didn't blink. "I lost my husband," I said. "My kids lost their father, and we survived. You will too." Later that week, Haley called, her voice tight with frustration. "They've been hiding everything," she said. "They took out a second mortgage last year. Bought that boat thinking you'd keep covering the first." I sighed. I figured. "They've been lying to everyone," she continued. "Told Aunt Sylvia you cut them off out of spite. They didn't tell anyone about the surgery." Of course not. Meanwhile, my own life had started blooming again, quietly, steadily, like spring pushing through frost. Rachel Tran, a kind and fiercely capable real estate agent from my grief support group, helped me list my apartment. Within a week, it was under contract. 2 weeks later, I had the keys to a 3-bedroom fixer-upper in West Seattle with a small yard and an actual treehouse. Caleb and Chloe ran across the backyard barefoot, shrieking with delight. Samantha painted their names on the front door in bubble letters. "This place feels like possibility," she said as we unpacked. She was right. I also launched something I never expected, a side business designing memorial websites. The idea came from the page I'd built for Dylan, and when I shared it in the support group, the response was overwhelming. I started getting requests. First 1, then 3, then 8. For the first time in months, I felt something more than survival. I felt purpose. But chaos always knocks twice. 1 month after the surgery, Haley called again. I could hear traffic in the background and a note of exhaustion in her voice. "They got a foreclosure notice," she said. 60 days, that's all they have." "What about their retirement funds?" "Mostly gone," she said. "They invested in some sketchy real estate fund through one of Dad's golf buddies, lost almost everything." I sighed. "I'm sorry." "I'm not asking you to help them," Haley added quickly. "I just thought you should know." That evening, I received texts from both of them, desperate, pathetic, full of veiled guilt and weaponized nostalgia. Janet's message, "We never thought you'd actually cut us off. We assumed you'd be angry for a week or 2 and then come around. They didn't believe in my boundaries. They believed in my guilt, and they were betting I'd break, but I didn't because I couldn't afford to, because for the first time in my life, I believed in me." One morning, Valerie from the hospital dropped by with her toddler and a casserole. "You look brighter," she said after hugging me. "I feel brighter." She told me about a local nonprofit that hosted weekly playdates for single parents. I joined. The twins loved it. I made friends. We traded babysitting shifts, shared Costco runs. My world was small, but it was warm. And it was mine. Every time I got a new commission request for a memorial site, I sent a tiny prayer of gratitude. Every time the twins laughed in the treehouse, I smiled. Every night I fell asleep without the crushing weight of debt I'd paid to people who had never once been there for me. I felt powerful, and just when I thought they might finally give up, they showed up again, this time with an Excel sheet printed out in full. My father's voice was hoarse, and his shoulders were hunched. "We need $144,000 to avoid foreclosure," he said. "That's everything. Mortgage, penalties, missed taxes." "I'm not a bank," I said simply. "We'll lose our home," my mother said, her voice breaking. "We're your family." I looked at her, at both of them, and I said, "You were my family, but family shows up. Family protects. Family sacrifices. I begged you for help. I was bleeding, dying, and you chose Elton John." My dad's face flushed. "We made a mistake." "No, you made a choice, and now you live with it." The twins burst into the room again, giggling, loud, joyful. Ronald turned to them like they were long-lost treasure. "My grandbabies," he murmured. "We've missed you." Chloe looked at him, confused. Caleb frowned. "They don't know you," I said, "because you chose to be strangers." Janet started crying. Ronald closed the folder slowly. "We just didn't expect it to go this far." I nodded. "And that was your real mistake." It happened on a Wednesday morning in early June. The twins were at preschool, just a half day, enough for me to catch up on a few client projects and vacuum under the couch for the first time in weeks. The sun was pouring through the kitchen windows, and the house smelled like cinnamon waffles and fresh air. I was folding laundry when I saw it, a cream-colored envelope, handwritten, no return address. The moment I saw the delicate loops of my mother's cursive, my stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to rip it in half. The other part, curious, cautious, still healing, carefully opened it. Inside was something I had never received in my entire life, a real apology. "Madeline, I've had time to reflect on my behavior. Watching you build a life without our help has forced me to confront some painful truths about myself as a mother." I sat down on the armrest of the couch and kept reading. "I was jealous of your independence, of your strength. I resented that you didn't seem to need me, because I always needed my own mother to feel like I mattered. I see now that you did need me, just not in the ways I wanted to be needed." Tears slipped down my cheeks, unexpected and warm. "When you asked us to care for the twins during your surgery, you weren't asking for a favor. You were asking for help. And we failed you completely. I'm so deeply sorry." She explained that they'd restructured their finances. Ronald had taken a part-time job at a local hardware store. They'd sold the boat, the timeshare, most of their jewelry. They weren't asking for money. They weren't even asking for forgiveness, just acknowledgement, just truth. I showed the letter to Haley that afternoon over coffee. She read it slowly, then let out a long sigh. "They've been talking about writing to you for weeks," she said. "Dad was against it, said it wouldn't make a difference. But after his heart scare last month—" My eyes shot up. "Heart scare?" Haley nodded. "High blood pressure, chest pains. Nothing major, but it scared him. He's actually taking his meds now, following doctor's orders. Therapy, too." "Therapy?" I echoed. "Family therapy," Haley said. "It was my idea. They fought it at first, but they go every Thursday now." I didn't respond right away. Just let the information sink in. Were they truly changing, or were they just adapting? That night, after the twins were asleep, I pulled out an old photo album. One I hadn't opened since before Dylan died. Smiling birthday parties, beach vacations, matching holiday sweaters. But behind every picture, I now saw the patterns I'd missed back then. The small dismissals, the subtle jabs, the way I always seemed to be on the outside of my own family. I closed the album, exhaled, and whispered, "Never again." A year passed, and on the anniversary of my surgery, I agreed to meet them. A neutral cafe, public, bright, low stakes. I wore a navy dress and the necklace Dylan gave me on our last Christmas together, the one with the tiny star. When they arrived, I barely recognized them. Ronald looked smaller. His confident posture had softened. His hands trembled slightly as he stirred his coffee. Janet wore jeans and a cardigan. No diamonds, no designer labels, just plain, practical clothing. For a while, none of us spoke. Then Ronald cleared his throat, and to my absolute shock, he cried, "I've been a terrible father," he whispered, "and an even worse grandfather. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I see it now, all of it." Janet didn't interrupt. She didn't defend. She didn't perform. She reached across the table, not to grab my hand, but just to be closer. "We've spent the past year in therapy," she said. "It hasn't been easy, but it's helped. It's opened our eyes." I didn't rush to forgive them. I didn't offer hugs or declarations or invitations to dinner. But I did pull out my phone and show them a picture of Caleb and Chloe at the park, smiling in the sun, chasing bubbles. I told them about Chloe's obsession with frogs and how Caleb could now count to 20 in Spanish. I told them about Samantha and Lexi and our new house with the garden and the tiny backyard library the twins thought was magic. And for the first time ever, they listened. Not to respond, not to shift the blame, just to hear me. When the check came, Ronald reached for it. I let him. As we stood up, Janet asked tentatively, "Do you think we'll ever get to know our grandchildren?" I paused, looked her in the eye. "That depends," I said. "Not on your words, on your actions." They both nodded. They didn't argue. They didn't guilt trip. They just nodded. And then we walked out into the Seattle afternoon. I didn't hug them goodbye. But I didn't feel cold either. I just felt clear. Weeks later, we started small. A supervised visit at a local playground. Janet brought a small bag of bubbles. Ronald sat on the bench, watching quietly. They didn't try too hard. They didn't push. They just showed up. One visit turned into two into four. Eventually, the twins began remembering their names, not those people from Mommy's stories, but Grandma Janet and Grandpa Ron. There were still boundaries, still rules, no unannounced visits, no overnights, no money. But there was space now for something real to grow. And me? I kept building. My memorial site business flourished, helping families honor those they loved with beauty and dignity. I took on fewer design clients, spent more time at the school library, learned how to make sourdough. Samantha moved to Portland, but we still FaceTimed every week. Lexi and I swapped birthday party planning duties. Haley came over every Sunday with muffins and tea. And sometimes, when the house was quiet and the kids were asleep, I'd stand in the backyard and just breathe. Because I was still here. Because I'd fought like hell to reclaim my life. And because I'd done the hardest thing of all, I stopped trying to earn love from people who never knew how to give it. Now, I love myself enough to teach my children what love really means. It means showing up. It means telling the truth. It means starting again. Not for others, but for yourself. Final line. I may not know if they've truly changed, but I know that I have, and that's enough.